Is that correct? Are we talking about understanding one's power, empowering oneself, and liberating one's sexuality?
Yeah, sexiness is what arises when you're in tune with who you are and in the moment. It's a state of well-being, and it's also something that attracts people to your brand. So all my books are about being yourself for a living, and when you're doing that, there's a sort of sexiness that arises from it. So this book specifically got a sexier edge to it.
Let's talk about that word, because, for me, the word sex is polarizing. It's a polarizing word. It's a concept. Why that word?
Well, there are lots of different aspects to being yourself for a living, and that's just come to the fore with this book. But, in a sort of crass way, sex is used to drive sales and to drive consumer behavior. So that's almost a manipulative side of it. But the other side of it is that when we're in tune with ourselves in a healthy state, there's a sexiness that arises from it. So it's kind of almost having a dig at the crass version and directing people towards the deeper version of it.
This book is put together in a very kind of pocket style, very kind of carry along.
Yes.
Was that kind of the idea when you put it together?
Yes, all 5 books in the series are like that. The modern lifestyle, people's attention spans are short and they don't want to be intimidated by dense text. So it's got lots of space around it, and it suits that.
And it breathes.
It breathes, and it's actually about what happens between the lines. So it's about validating what people are going through, stimulating and inspiring that, and also giving you new things, challenging the paradigm.
There's something you talk about, that sexiness and vitality are signs that we are being true to ourselves.
Yes.
How do we define ourselves as sexier? And I often, when you're in a conversation with somebody, they'll talk about a lot of things, but they'll never describe themselves as sexy.
Yes, well, I think it's one of those things that's best left unsaid, It's almost in the unspoken that it's most powerful. So when you're in tune with it and when you're being true to yourself, it kind of emanates from you, but you don't necessarily have to refer to it specifically.
But, we are taught to own our success. We're taught to own our family, our friends. Why can't we own the concept of being sexy? Why can't I stand on a podium and say, I am sexy?
It could work for you.
Because somebody within the room go, no, you're not.
Yeah, well, that's the risk of it. And you're dealing with those social filters. So I think it's one of those things you've got to be discerning with. If you are sexy, you don't have to say it, just be it,
How do we describe sexy as, because in the book you talk about sexy being heroic, and I don't think we often look at it from that perspective.
Yes.
As it's being heroic to be sexy.
It's sexy to be heroic, both of those things. I think we're all on a journey in our lives to be true to ourselves, and in an ironic way, that's the most challenging thing. It's most natural on one level, and it's the most challenging on another. Society doesn't encourage it. So you have to be a hero in your own life. You have to embrace your potential, see your vision and go for it. Be an entrepreneur in what you do. Be yourself for a living. And that heroism is your brand. It starts to identify your brand, and it's what draws people to you.
What was one of the most telling insights for you when you put this edition together?
Well, I'd say I actually thought about that on the way in. I thought, the insight in there on love is probably my favorite. And they all like songs. I've got a musical background, so they all like songs that were sort of written. You can read them over and over again. And I love all of them, but there's one in there on love, which is, I call it contemporary mystic business poetry.
Yeah.
So even though it's written in a sort of prose-like way, it's very poetic. And I write very much in the moment. It's almost like I channel creativity. So I don't really judge what's in there, but the one on love really stands out for me.
We are not islands. We develop with people, and people's influences and their lives influence ours.
Yes.
How do we create an emotional frame that can withstand creativity, negativity, emotional battering, emotional growth, that we can create a frame that's unique to us and not influenced and picked apart by different people?
In a word, I'd say presence. When you're truly present, when you're here now, all of your intelligence can work optimally. When you're overwhelmed by the mind, when whether it's the media or conversations with people, you can be very drawn away from yourself. So just keep bringing yourself gently back to the now, and that will also bring people into the present themselves. And that's where sexiness resides.
How do we develop the now? How do we develop that now? Because if that now, it comes from a bad space, whatever you're drawing yourself to could be bad.
Well, the now as in being present. So even if you're in a stressful situation, you can still have a presence about you that transcends that. So the practice is just little things. When you get into your car, sit for a moment in the silence. Or when you're in nature, just tune into the the harmony that's there, or when you're in a room, tune into the space and the silence of the room rather than the things. And slowly by doing that, by being more and more present, you're able to do that in more and more challenging situations. But it's really the challenge of humanity at the moment. The more present we are, the better we're going to solve our problems.
Robin Mueller, thank you very much for joining us here in studio. That's motivational speaker and author of Sexier Insights, Being Yourself for a Living. And it's got some great tips, maybe something for you and your partner to go through, not while you're having supper, but individually. Carry it with you. Let me know what you think about it. Morning live at SABC.co.za. We're taking a break.